My name is David Bishop. Today is December 1st, and this is actually a add-on to the prior Lab 5 for the multiplexer. So the first lab we did a 4x1 multiplexer. This one we are doing an 8x1 multiplexer. So after some configuration, I was able to set it up. The biggest problem I ran into with this actual setup is I'm not sure if it was one of the inverters or a poor connection, but I can recreate the multiplexer. However, my outputs were not exactly the same as what was included with the lab. So per the lab, I think it said I should have registered a light at 1, 3, 4, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. However, after setting up the lab and putting it together according to at least the schematics I have, the actual readings that I got was I only received a high on 1, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, 14, and 15. I tried to make some changes to the inverter. I also tried to make some changes to the actual setup of all the inputs. However, it still didn't get exactly what I needed. Oddly enough, though, if I simulate the ground without actually using a ground wire, it will perform, it will actually light up on the ones when it should. But I'm not sure if that's just because of the power coming into the board, even though there's nothing really being fed to it, or if it's just for some odd reason something that the IC it does itself. So after all that, I'm going to go ahead and go through the lab and see what we can come up with here and see if I can recreate it for a third time. Let's go ahead. We'll see. The first one would be all zero. So currently I have, let me hook these up. So I'm using these, and I'm using the actual ground bar as my grounds. So here we have all zeros. We have no light. If I remove this one for D and input that, gives me a light. As you can see, it lightly lit up slightly. So now we're going to go move to number 2, which would be just C with the power to it. Nothing there. So now we're going to go to 3, which would be C and D with power. As you can see, we didn't get anything from C and D with power, even though according to the lab we should have. Next, we're going to go for 4, which would be just B with power. As you can see, we had a light up there. There it is. And then we're going to move to 5, which would be B and D with power. And as you can see, we actually got it to light up with B and D, even though it technically shouldn't have. And we're going to move to 6, which would be B, C, and D. Or, I'm sorry, B and C with power. Six, 7, which would be B, C, and D all, I'm sorry, B, C, and D all with power, with no power to A. So as you can see, we still have a light here. We're going to move to 8, which would be just power applied to A. Light at 8. And then now we're going to go to 9, which would be A and D with power applied to it. We got us a light. Next we'll be moving to 10, which would be A and C with power applied to it. We have no light for 10. Next we're going to move to 11, which should be A, C, and D with power. We got a light. Next we'll move to 12, which would be, let's see, let me count, 8, 4. So that would be A and B with power applied to it. Nothing applied to C and D. And you can see our light has gone out. And then moving on to 13, which would be 8, 4, 2, 12. So that should be A, B, and D with power applied to it. We have no light. And now we're going to move to 14, which would be A, B, and C with power applied to it. Light came on. And then for the last one, we're going to apply power to A, B, C, and D. And with all those lit up, with all those applied, we have power to it. So as you can see, the multiplexer was doing what it was supposed to based off the numbers. However, possibly due to a design flaw that I overlooked or something I didn't see, the lights that were supposed to light up according to the diagram in the lab is actually different than what my readings suggested based on the way that I set up the system. So though this was a success, at least in the manner of a multiplexer performing like it's supposed to, I would say it was unsuccessful because I wasn't able to reproduce the same outcome that was expected based off the chart that was provided in the lab.